You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Okay, so the Supreme Court of Georgia issues a landmark decision on vehicular data privacy. So there was an accident. A Corvette, an older Corvette, was pulling out in front of, at the time, a new Dodge Charger, and he plows into the Corvette. The investigation on the scene doesn't show anything out of the ordinary. Obviously, the people in the 88 Corvette or whatever it was pulled out, and you had no choice but to plow into them based on the skid marks. Well, they go into the guy's onboard computer and find out that he was going 100 miles an hour. The problem being, of course, there was no evidence to that, and they did not get a warrant for the information on the car's computer. And of course, every bit of evidence after that is fruit of a tainted tree. That all came from them forcing the driver to give them the information off the vehicle computer, and our Supreme Court came on the right side of this.
I agree with the ruling. Did you talk about what the Court of Appeals said? They said that there's no expectation of privacy in a vehicle. So,
no, I didn't even get into the appeals case at all. I just gave the overview.
Okay, well, I don't want to get into it too much because, I mean...
TikTok.
Thank you, Dave. Do you want to play the Jeopardy music and tell me to hurry the hell up? But no, I don't want to belabor it. But their argument, which the Supreme Court overturned, was that there's no expectation of privacy in a vehicle. Which, you know, if you from a private property perspective, I completely disagree, and I don't like that standard. But in their defense, that's the standard that's been used for the last 2 decades. So I think that the Court of Appeals ruling was consistent with everything else, if that makes sense.
It does, but to me, it goes to you need a warrant to search my vehicle for drugs, even if the dog indicates there's drugs in the wheel well. Can I search? No. Okay, well, this is the evidence we have, Your Honor. Okay, go ahead and search, or there's not enough evidence to support probable cause. The vehicle's computer, you and I are both on the same page. That's the way it should be. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'd like to get a program and write it into my truck that it erases the data every day.
Okay, so that wouldn't help you. So I posted this story that we're talking about the case on my blog page, and I upset some of my friends in law enforcement because they've worked crashes with this type of data. So, and I was provided with some additional information, so I have a better understanding. I'm not sure that I agree, but I have a better understanding. And if you erased your data every single day, it still wouldn't impact the crash data. So the crash data, depending on the make and model of your vehicle, is 5 to 20 seconds before the crash. So it doesn't really have any GPS location or any valuable data other than what was happening with the operations of the vehicle right before the crash. And the one thing I will say, and this is definitely, please don't misconstrue this as a defense, because you could do this voluntarily if you wanted, but it does provide, if the vehicle had a malfunction or something. And apparently I was reading that in 2014, there was, when these were really coming in, I guess September 1st of 2014 is when this was mandated to be in vehicles in the US. And there was, at the time, some sort of lawsuit against GM for malfunctions that were related to crashes and these, quote, black boxes or CDR or EDR or whatever they're being called were able to reveal that. So there is that redeeming quality that if like you're at fault in an accident, but it was the vehicle and not you could prove that. So when I made the comments on Facebook, of course I was like taking the position that we're taking on this show. And I said that, you can get a warrant and it doesn't take that long to get a warrant. And so if it doesn't take that long and you can get one, then freaking get one. But apparently it can take, and I didn't think about at night. So I guess it can take longer at night if it's not, quote, regular business hours.
Well, but warrantless searches lead to other problems. Is where have you been? You said it doesn't track GPS information, but if you've got the super awesome GPS integrated in your vehicle, it just might.
I don't understand what you're saying.
That it could track location, speed.
Yes.
Yes.
It does.
Other crimes, other accusations. When is it going to track somebody and get them exposed for cheating on their spouse? Or you're right. An FBI wiretap could exonerate you from crimes too. It doesn't make it a good thing without a warrant.
No, I'm not saying.
No, I'm not saying you do. I'm not arguing with you directly. I'm with the point that it could be good.
Well, and so that's what I was going to say was, the argument is about getting a warrant. It could take a lot of time, or that, like if there's a fatality or an injury or something, if you even move the vehicle, it can erase the data. So, because I said if it's not time sensitive, because my understanding was, it's like a phone. If you have my phone, when they seize your phone, supposedly they will put not law enforcement, like GBI or something, and they'll put it in some sort of bag that doesn't allow you to, I guess, what is the word, like sync from your computer. You can't erase all the data. It's in this bag that can't.
Right, you can't remote wipe it or anything like that.
Yeah, and they can't do anything either. It's whatever. You get what I'm saying. But then they wait until they get the warrant to go through the phone. Supposedly, that's what they say. So that was what I was, I guess, wrongfully assuming, was that the data could just be transported to wherever you take the vehicle for the rest of the investigation, and that it wasn't time sensitive. You could wait for a warrant. Apparently that is not true. I was corrected. And so I can see that and I understand that.
How was this done for, I don't know, the century before we had onboard computers doing this? It was done with math and investigative techniques. You don't get to violate my rights just because it makes it easier. Because, warrants should take a long time, because it should be a pretty high standard to go to a judge and say, we're going to waive the Fourth Amendment based on this evidence. It should be difficult to do. It should be time consuming to do.
Well, I'm going to push back on that, because I know of an incident that happened here and Georgia State Patrol was investigating, and it was somebody who was rather prominent in the community, and they hit somebody while they were driving their car. The person was not in a car, and Georgia State Patrol had to go get warrants for a number of things, including the phone. And I guess you could say they weren't ever held accountable in the courts because of who they are, but because of the information and the warrants that were obtained, and because those warrants were easy to obtain, like, people know what happened. And I understand that that's not the justice system, but like, I can appreciate that when you kill someone on the road, there's a desire to find out if you were actually at fault or if that person did something. Like, I don't think the warrant process should be as burdensome when you've killed someone using your vehicle, when driving is a privilege, not a right, versus having a warrant to search your home.
Yeah, but your vehicle is an extension of your home.
It is, but if you're just at home, that's a lot different than when you are driving down the road and you kill someone and it's your fault, and it's obvious to see that.
Well, if it's obvious to see that, there's other evidence to go along with it.
Yes, but the crash data could show, did you ever hit the brakes? If you didn't hit the brakes, were you texting?
Well, there's 10,000 things, but
those things wouldn't be clear without the crash data.
Right, but the crash data was not there until 5 years ago.
True. Very true.
And somehow we put people in jail for it. And before there was texting, and there was texting before 2014, before there was texting, there was doing your makeup in the car. There was eating soup with a spoon. There was swatting at your kids, changing your car stereo. Hell, my ex-brother-in-law read the newspaper while driving.
That's pretty terrible.
Of course, I've got a joke. You could tell when an old person's texting and driving because he's got his reading glasses on. So all this stuff existed before, and somehow we were able to make those cases without going in and going, give me all your data.
So this case, obviously, from the perspective of if you don't have any limitations, they'll use it however they want, is absolutely true. I mean, if something is not disallowed, then the government's going to use it. That's just standard, no matter what we're talking about. But I am supposedly they're going to move to a system where you can consent to give the information. Like, agencies will have a form that you can sign when you're involved in a crash and consent to have your data pulled, I guess. Well, then they can pull the data, and then,
I would think you could now. I mean, just even a verbal waive of your rights. I mean, when they Mirandize you, you don't. Well, I mean, essentially get back to the station. You have to sign something, but they Mirandize you, and then you start talking. You've been Mirandized.
But this has to happen before.
Well, what I'm saying is, everybody's walking around with a camera on them. Say, we would really like to pull the data from your vehicle. Do you have a problem with that? No, sir, I don't. Well, then you've authorized it. But if I say, look, I don't consent to any search of my vehicle, if you want to search anything in my vehicle, including the data, you need a warrant. That's it. I mean, it's you need to go and wake the judge up, take your evidence, and say, this is, we have no skid marks, but we have a vehicle that plowed into somebody else, and it looks like he never hit the brakes. Then we you can convince the judge that we have probable cause to search the vehicle. And at that point, especially in a fatality, they don't move a damn thing in a fatality. I know, because I've been stuck in traffic behind a fatality yelling, they're dead already, just move them out of the way. Because I'm
very compassionate.
I really am. I hate traffic. But
you're saying that if you were dead, you would not want traffic to be stopped up on your behalf.
It's cool.
Right. Just move you.
I've got nowhere to be.
And I think that's what everyone just loves about you, Dave. No, I understand what you're saying, and I don't know what you could liken crash data to. I mean, it's not the same as a cell phone. It's not like other data. I do think it is unique.
It would be very similar to a ring door, front door camera doorbell thing.
Why?
Okay, if you're accused of if someone says, I heard something going on in your house, you must have been beating your wife. There's a Ring doorbell. Well, there's audio, because, I mean, most houses aren't built so well that the microphone can't pick it up. Then at that point, you would need to put together probable cause and go and get permission from a judge to pull that data. Meanwhile, of course, the person with that doorbell could be deleting the data. That's a different thing, but it's very similar to that. I mean, it's dash cams. People get dash cams to protect themselves if someone were to force their way over and purposely get them into an accident. Does that mean that if you have a dash cam, the officer should be able to walk up and go, "Give me all the tape from that dash cam"?
Which I've called that's not the same thing.
Well, it's essentially the same thing, but it's what I call dash cams evidence for the prosecution. As if it records everything without bias, but it's data that's in your vehicle. So just because the onboard computer is part of the vehicle build would say that if the dash cam was built into the vehicle, it would be exempt from needing a warrant.
Okay, well, here's a question. They don't need a warrant to take your car and to take it to be investigated further.
They should, because that's depriving.
Okay.
That's depriving someone of property.
I understand, but I'm just saying, like, do you understand where I'm coming from? Your argument was that for years we've done it off math and whatever you said, and geometry and charts and diagrams, and it wasn't computer based. So they would tow your car and take it somewhere, and depending on the circumstances, this is not for every crash. Sometimes they'll just take it to the lot and it'll sit there, but sometimes they'll take your, like, they don't need a warrant to do that. So I think there is there's an inconsistency there.
Well, there is. What you would have to do in order to confiscate the vehicle is to consider it individual evidence in a crime, just like finding a bullet. You know, if I shoot somebody, I can't go, that's my bullet, you can't have it. Is you say you'd have to first establish, I assume, I went to medical school, not law school, assume that a crime has been committed. So in the case that a pedestrian's been hit, well, we know that a crime has been committed by one of the two. Same thing with someone backing out in front of you. A crime has been committed by one of the two parties, and this object is a piece of evidence in a crime. Is the only way I could think that you can do it without saying that we need to satisfy the Fourth Amendment in depriving an individual of property. That's the only way I could think it could be satisfied, is that it's a evidence in a crime. That's the object itself. Same thing if there's a smoking gun laying next to a body. The smoking gun is the evidence itself. But the security camera, you need a warrant for if they don't want to give it to you.
So are you distinguishing between objects and digital records?
Yes. I guess I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's
no, I understand. I'm just trying to understand.
That's the logic. I would say yes. Your data, we established pretty well, even with the metadata that was being collected by the NSA, that our data is ours. Is the equivalent to my documents. And
but
seizing my documents is a higher standard than the gun that's laying next to the body.
I don't know if that's true. Or, I mean, I understand that that's what they established, but I don't know that I agree with that on either side of that coin. But arguably, tires or a bumper or lights in the headlights, the coils expand when certain things happen or whatever, and the lights. I mean, I've learned a lot about crashes in the last couple of days that I didn't necessarily know before. I didn't have a reason to know, but all of that is technically data. It's just not electronic. Like, your tires can tell a story. Your bumper can tell a story based on the scratches and the dents and everything else. And you don't need the same threshold of proof or justification to take those things.
I just don't
or
think
to take pictures or to anything.
I just don't think it's that hard to get a warrant based on probable cause. The threshold.
But the difference is that you don't need the difference is they're supposedly from the person that told me of this. I have no reason to believe that they're lying at all. But so the argument is that, like, a bumper is not time sensitive. It's going to be a dented bumper no matter what. But the data can be erased forever and never retrieved if it's moved. So there's a time sensitivity component that can impact it tremendously.
Right, but so could driving a 2013. I mean, I would say to the same investigator, so if somebody runs over a pedestrian in a 2010 Taurus, you go, well, screw it, we don't have any evidence. Oh, you got us, you wily SOB. You bought an old car.
Your, Lord have mercy. You're killing me.
Well, no, I don't think there's a clean answer, and this is one of those things where the constitutionality of stuff is we are in virgin territory.
Well, I say all the time, I don't understand. I mean, all of the people, all the law enforcement officers that I have held accountable in my job, on the flip side of that, I understand how difficult their job can be sometimes, simply from the fact that Court of Appeals cases and then Supreme Court cases are being handed down all the time, changing how they're doing their jobs. Like, you take a look at the DUI Court of Appeals cases that are handed down each year, and there's like 50 of them telling them what they can and cannot do that's different from the law the previous year. So, like, it's constantly evolving, and for the ones that give a crap about if whether or not they're doing their job correctly or in line with the legal precedent, it could be confusing. I don't...
It's virtually daily that new
Right.
information is coming down, and it's frustrating, especially if you're a good cop and your desire is to protect the public. You're just trying to do your job and get the bad people off the street. The problem is a lot of good people have been taken off the street with that mentality. Just like we were talking, just like we were talking about with the first Supreme Court case.
Oh, right.
Is that prosecutor and probably judge was just trying to take a bad guy off the street because they believed he did it. There's lots of cases like that where...
Well, the evidence may have pointed to the evidence did point to the fact that he did it. The argument was whether or not he
right.
did it in
well, what I'm saying
self-defense.
is it. And I'm not saying that they're trying to do their job, and sometimes the Bill of Rights seems like a hindrance, but it was always supposed to be. It was always supposed to be a check on power. That you couldn't go up to somebody and go, "Let me open your case. I want to see your papers." Which is essentially what's happening is, open up your data. Let me see what you got going on there. Let me make sure you didn't break the law. And that is exactly what the Fourth Amendment was supposed to prevent.
So let me ask this, because I think there is one key component here that we are disagreeing about, but which is shocking. Like, there should be alarms going off on the show right now if anyone's made it this far, because we're way over the time. But this topic is like interesting. But so would you set different standards for when there is a fatality because there's harm against another person? Like, in terms of the crash data, would you...
I don't think you can. If the restraint on government is the restraint on government, regardless of the accusation. You don't get to say that because you're accused of murder, I get to violate your rights.
But we don't get grant bond for murder. We do different. We set different standards because of... I mean, you have to go before different judges for certain crimes. I'm not saying that should be okay. I'm just saying, like, do you think that would be acceptable because you can...
No, but certainly with a fatality, we already changed the way we do things in that vehicles are not moved. Highways are shut down for 10 hours while they investigate a fatality, and in that time, you can get warrants. You can accumulate information. Say we need to search his phone. We need to search the data on the vehicle. Nothing is moved during that time.
10 hours is not the norm. So let's say that...
It's not the norm. But in a fatality, they have no respect for time. I say no respect. There's no regard for how long it takes to process the scene. We're going to process the scene.
Absolutely.
And that's it. Besides my flippant response of scrape the corpse off the pavement and get him out of my way. That's the proper thing for government to do, is say we're going to process the scene until we're done processing the scene. And with that, I would think there's plenty of time to obtain a warrant if there's probable cause.
Okay, so would you object then if they take as long as they damn well please to get to leave everything blocked off while they get the warrant? Because that's if someone doesn't sign a form to consent, that's where we're headed, is that they'll just pop a squat on the side of the road and wait for a warrant, which could be longer.
I see, there's a judge in my neighborhood, and he may be retired now because I haven't seen the sheriff's deputies out there, but I would see them 2:00 in the morning coming home, getting warrants signed. And warrants can be signed virtually now. I mean,
I'm not disputing any of
if,
that. I'm
if,
just
if
saying,
it's that
will
important,
you accept?
wake
I'm
the
just
judge
saying,
up.
Right. I totally agree. I'm just saying, will you accept, we have this that an officer can't detain someone for longer than reasonably necessary. Like the canine, if they bring a canine in, it has to be within a certain amount of time. You can't hold them on the side of the road. You can't detain them longer. It's the same argument. Are you willing to extend the time you would allow for them to have a road closed or to investigate because they're trying to do this, because that is going to be
the road
result.
Closure, yes. I mean, the road closure, fine. As far as detaining the person, no, you can't. You can't take the vehicle right now is being processed as part of the accident. But you're free to go. I mean, call an Uber, go home. We've got your information. If we need to talk to you, we'll let you know. Unless there's something else to hold them on. Unless you've got somebody that is wanted for something else, or you've got some other crime that you have them on. There's,
sure.
Sure,
crash data is not immediate. Like, they pull it immediately, but then it has to be analyzed. And
right.
I mean, yeah, I get that. I'm just wondering how far people are willing to, every action has an unintended reaction and a consequence. And if you want things to be a certain way, you have to accept what comes with that. And I just wonder what people are willing to.
Right. If nothing to charge somebody with, and say, look, all the vehicles stay where they are until we process the scene, but we've got your information. You can have your wife come pick you up. You can have an Uber come pick you up. We'll contact you at the number if we need anything from you. At that point, if there's a warrant that comes in, you can process the data. And like you said, that data doesn't come back immediately. It's not like he's going to jail that night. Unless
not because of the data.
Not because of the data. I mean, obviously there's I was going to say, but obviously there's alcohol, or there's something else that is a contributing factor. They may be taking a ride in the blue limousine, but I don't think that it's reason to keep somebody sitting on the side of the road. So, I think of myself, sitting on the side of the road. Summertime, it's 110 degrees outside. You're sitting on the side of the road, no air conditioning, and personally, I'm losing money every time the second hand moves. I'm losing money. So they could say, hey, listen, you got to leave your vehicle here, but you can go. We'll let you know. We'll let you know where you can pick your vehicle up and where to pick up the accident report.
I don't think this is not over. There's going to be more.
Oh,
about
no.
this. And I'm excited. The nerd in me is totally excited because there's so many components to it. I wish, I don't know. I wish it wasn't so technical because it's a little bit difficult to understand. Like the intricacies of it. I don't think the intricacies of it make a warrant any more or less necessary or any more relevant to the conversation, but it does add a different.
And I would hate to see somebody that is actually responsible for taking a life walk free because there was no warrant obtained when there was probable cause available. And the vice versa. I certainly would not want to see somebody who was not guilty go to prison for a period of time until they figure out that the GM computer was flawed.
Well, and the interest, it always has to be somebody's case that gets thrown out for something like this to be set as the precedent. I mean, that's how it happens. But my understanding is that in the Mobley case that spurred all of this, he made a number of admissions of fault. I mean, that's not outlined in the article, but if you read the case, there were a number of admissions. So it's basically like borderline confession, but oh wait, actually I don't want to be held accountable for all this because he was convicted of vehicular homicide. And so then he appealed based on the search, which I mean is a little disingenuous. It doesn't mean it's not legit, but
well, we go back
if you're this person who wants to invoke your fifth, then
yeah, we go back to defending the worst people.
Yeah. Yeah, but know all your rights. If you're gonna complain about the Fourth, invoke your Fifth.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, from what you're saying is he didn't get on the side of the road and go and shut up and sit there silently, as he gave plenty of indications that, if taken before a judge, probably would have been sufficient for probable cause.
Well,
you know, if he's, and I've heard that from plenty of police officers, is, you know, you don't, CSI is fiction. Usually you get people
what?
And you get people.
Are you kidding
and
me?
They just can't stop talking. And people's mouths give them away, and they just can't stop talking. So if that's the case, in this here is the guy that kept talking, like, well, let's pull his data and look at it. The same information could have been relayed to a judge and done the proper procedural thing and gotten a warrant to pull that data